everybody. So one question that I get quite often, and it actually arose again in a discussion this past week, is why when you buy, say, a size 22 corset, when you measure it on the outside, even when it's completely closed, it measures much larger than 22 inches, because some people, they want to buy a certain corset to give that external measurement. So why is it that the corset measures larger when you are fully closed in the corset? Does that mean that the corset is stretching out? Does that mean that it was the wrong size all along? So in this video, I'm going to explain how corset sizes are determined, why your corset measures more on the outside of your corset, and how to measure your true internal corseted waist measurement. The waist of a corset starts with the pattern drafted, and as I had mentioned in other videos, the pattern is a two-dimensional representation of the corset panels on paper, which you can cut out and use to trace the fabric later on. The pattern is only half of the corset because you simply mirror the pieces for the other side if you want the corset to be symmetric. But this means that the corset, when laid out flat and not taut around the body, determines the size of the waist. So for this particular corset, a size 22, the sum of each of the panels at the waistline is 11 inches. So you can see that in this corset, when laid out flat on both the fashion side and on the inside, it's 22 inches as it's supposed to be. In this situation, it's a bit easier to measure at the waistline from the inside of the corset because the waist tape is more visible from that side. Generally, the waist tape is put at the smallest point of the waist. So if you have this corset and it's 22 inches on the inside and 22 inches on the outside laying flat, then why would the corset be bigger than 22 inches on the outside? Because the corset itself takes up bulk and volume. All matter takes up some kind of space. So even a corset with both the fashion side and the lining side being 22 inches, the outside of the corset will have to stretch a little to account for the bulk on the inside. So some corseteers will roll pin or use turn of cloth on the outside to make the outside of the corset a little bit bigger so that it doesn't stretch or cause any wrinkles. I have a separate video explaining the science behind that, and I'll link it right up in the corner there. But I don't recommend that you do this with any of your corsets. If you were to basically roll up your corset as tight as possible and make sure there's no air in there whatsoever, you'll be able to see that the corset itself takes up quite a lot of bulk. To determine how to find the internal waist measurement or the true restriction on your waist, first wrap a flexible tape measure around your waist at the smallest point. It helps to wear a slippery shirt for this, as you'll be adjusting it as you go along. Make sure that the tape is not twisted or bunched in any way before you put your corset on. Hold the tape in place as you wrap the corset around your body and slip the measuring tape through the slit between the busk. Then start tying up your corset. Please note that this method only works if you have a busk or front lacing in the front of your corset or some kind of opening. If your corset has a closed front or it has a zipper or anything else, then you will have to position the ends of the tape towards the back of the corset and have a friend read it for you once you're done tying up. As you're tightening the corset, stop periodically to make sure that the tape measure is still positioned in the proper place at the smallest part of your waist, and that it's not twisting or bunching up underneath the corset. Keep tightening little by little and pull the tape measure so that it remains smooth. This is where the slippery shirt or liner comes in handy. And then once you're tied off with the corset closed, then basically take your measuring tape and align it so that you'll be able to read the difference. Now, don't pull too tightly because then you'll fabricate the internal measurement, but just pull it to the side so that you'll be able to read the difference. So right there is the 20-inch mark, and you're going to take the difference of that from, say, 42 1/4. So that means my internal measurement of this corset is 22 1/4 inches, which is suitable for a size 22. Now, the extra 1/4 of an inch in there might be taken into account by this little gap in the front here between the busk, or the little gap in the back because it loosens a little bit when I tie off the bow. But it can also be accounted by any stretching in the corset. Now, if I actually take out the measuring tape, this kind of feels strange. There we go. And measure over top of the corset, you will see that my measurement is actually 23 1/2. So this means that the corset itself actually adds 1 1/4 inches to the volume of your waist. So I hope this answers a lot of your questions. And if you go to an experienced corsetier, they might be familiar with their own corsets enough that they'll know the difference between their internal corseted measurements versus the external corseted measurements. So if you need to fit into a vintage dress that has no stretch in the waist and it has a 24-inch waist, so you know for sure you need an external corseted waist that's smaller than 24 inches, then they will probably be able to estimate the size of your internal corseted waist to make sure that you fit into that dress. If you are going with off-the-rack corsets in that case, then it might be easier to size down. But in that situation, make sure that the rest of the corset will fit you properly in the rib cage and in the hips so that you don't run into any fitting problems later on. So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you learned a little bit. And if you did like it, please click that like button or click subscribe for more corset videos. And I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.